Well, hello and welcome back to the basement. Here we are again, another video. And today's video is going to be about the 3-meter Fox. I've had this sailplane for almost 2 years now and been playing around with it off and on and have come to really like it a lot. But it took a while to figure out all of the ins and outs of getting this thing out to the field, putting it together, launching it by myself, getting the mixes fine-tuned to the point where if I throw it into safe mode, high rates, and use it to loiter around looking for thermals, that I'm making just using the ailerons control with some mixes on the elevator and rudder, making some really nice coordinated turns, low drag, very efficient. And then learning about how to land it, I split the ailerons into 2 channels and put on some crow. And I also want to share the settings for that takeoff mode, which is elevator slightly up, flaps at 10%, both of which tend to create a positive rate of climb at full power, and with wings leveled by safe, so that you can take it up here like so, come up to full power, give it a gentle throw, and then just watch it take off. Hands off. And once it gets up to 50 feet or so, get your hands on the controls. If you want to, throw it out of safe, bring the flaps all the way up, fly it aerobatically, or you can just leave it in safe and full power climb pretty much as steep as you want to, up to a good altitude to catch some thermals and loiter around pretty much effortlessly. One of the things that people are concerned about with this sailplane is the amount of room it might take up in your car or van or whatever. So here it is, totally disassembled in its 5 major pieces: 2 wings, horizontal stabilizer, vertical stabilizer, and fuselage. And when it's taken apart like this, it really doesn't take up much more room than, say, my Cessna 150 over there. In fact, in some ways it takes up less because of the fact I can take the tail off of it. So I'm going to put it together and film it so that you can see how this thing comes together into a truly massive sailplane, or massive by radio control standards. I mean, you're talking about sailplanes out there with 40 and 50-foot wingspans and beautiful long tapered wings with very high glide ratios of 40 to 1 sometimes, or maybe even a little better. This one, I think, is doing somewhere around 20 to 1 glide ratio. But then again, it's got a motor on it, it's got a battery, and while it's designed to sail, and it does it beautifully. This thing in the air, to me at least, is just gorgeous when it's sailing around up there. It's really easy to see. Orientation's no problem. It's just fun sometimes to kick back on a warm day with some thermals. You find yourself a comfortable chair and just sit there and play with it. It's a blast. In fact, one of the most fun days I ever had was yesterday out at my Noblesville, Indiana club. Flew it for 30 minutes with, I think it was 2 motor runs. Found some lift out there. And then finally decided to bring it down. I had somewhere else to go later in the day, and I had another airplane I wanted to fly. So the first thing we're going to do is insert this tube into the back of the fuselage, like so. And we've got wires hanging down here for rudder and elevator. We're going to, next step is assemble the empennage. which is two pieces that just, oops, slide together, supposedly. Okay, flip it over here. So, okay, so that slot goes in there. There we go. And we just pull this forward till it clicks, like so. And we hang this off the back, like so. And we match up dark to dark and light to light, elevator to elevator, rudder to rudder. This one, rudder to rudder. See, dark on the right, dark on the right. Okay. Optionally, you can just leave the rudder and elevator on here. Now, one little refinement is that you notice these wires are hanging off down here. Those need to go in a slot right here in the fuselage. Flip this around. And then in here, I have those wires with a wire tie on them. So I can just pull them, hopefully. Let's back this out a little bit. These guys started in here. Then we can pull them, hopefully. Okay. Something is catchy. All right, now let's try that again. Never fails. It doesn't go quite to plan when you put it on the camera. There we go. Scrunch that up a little more. I think those are now in there. Pick up any slack. There we go. Up there. Okay. Now, this normally goes a lot better than this one. I'm out at the field. All right. Now, the empennage is on. Clicked into place. There's a latch that holds it. Okay. So the next step is going to be to put the wings on. So I'm going to take this guy here, turn him around like so. Move the canopy back here. We have this rather substantial wing tube. Stand her up here. The wing tube in. And grab a wing. Let's see. Let's put the other wing on first. It's a lot easier to do this when you have more room out at the field. Okay, there we go. Now there's two latches underneath. Let me just shimmy this guy in here. There's the front one just latched, and I think that's the rear one. Yep, there. Okay, that wing is latched. We don't have enough room between me and the wall to put this other wing on. So what I'm going to do here, a little reset. A little glitch. Oh, what's going on with the lights? Well, anyway. Okay, so we got that wing on. Usually this one is a little tougher for some reason. There, I heard it click. Okay, there we are. There is the assembled airplane. Or, if you prefer, sailplane. And as you can see, it is a rather large piece of equipment. So next up, we're going to talk about setting up the radios and that mix that I need to put a little bit of flap in, a little bit of up elevator in safe mode using an elevator and flap mix using the flap settings. Okay. All right. Next up, the radios. Step one, travel, servo travel. I have an unlocked 637T in here, and so I have set, for purposes of setting up Crow, I increased right aileron and left aileron travel to 115%. Also, for purposes of setting this up, I had some issues with some of the servo connectors or several wire connectors. The little brass and steel pieces that hold things together at the end of the servo wires. One of them stripped out, and I had to play around with sub trims to get everything to zero up on the controls. That is, everything flat when it should have been flat. And so I had to play around with sub trims slightly to get everything working. This has nothing to do with where the servo arms are mounted on the servos, and everything to do with those wires not being connected quite correctly into the control surfaces at the horns. Because I had the ailerons connected separately for purposes of doing Crow, I had to play around with reversing the aileron. So right aileron and left aileron are reversed, as is the elevator from the normal positions. And very important here when you do this, you got to go into forward programming and have the radio relearn those servo directions. If you don't do that, you're going to crash, which means, in this case, since I have a 637T, these were already unlocked. I didn't have to worry about going in and unlocking a 637TA, which made it a little more convenient. But when I got done here, always the last thing I do when I get done playing around with servos is go in, do forward programming, and have the radio relearn the servos. Okay, let's talk about rates in Expo. I set the ailerons to 125%. On high rates, try to get a little more roll out of this thing, these big long wings. This airplane does not want to roll very fast. And mid rates at 80.
Low rates.
Expo at 30 on all three settings.
High rates.
Elevator doesn't really need 100%.
Mid rates. Low rates.
Set the rates up slightly different. And Expo's all at 30%. Rudder at 100, 85, and 75. And again, all the Expos at 30%. And that setting all of these at 30% is important if you want to have coordinated turns, because you don't want the elevator and rudder responding to a different Expo curve than the elevators, the ailerons. You want them all to have the same Expo settings. Otherwise, you'll wind up not getting proportional control over the empennage that you are inputting on the ailerons for roll. Okay, let's talk about the flap system. Position 0
landing flaps
is landing flaps, and that is set to 20% with elevator at 22% and crow at 50%. I'll put a battery on the airplane here in a minute and we'll show you what that results in. Now position 1
launch mode A
that's launch mode. That is set with flaps at -62%, elevator at -18%, and landing flaps
up
are -86% and 0 on crow and elevator. So what is important here is the difference between flaps up and launch mode.
Launch mode A.
Which isn't all that much. When I go from -62% to 20%, that's an 82% difference, which really puts the flaps down.
Launch mode A. Flaps up.
Okay, so this is linked to switch G over here on the upper right of the transmitter. Okay, mixes are the other essential ingredient to get this to work. And so aileron rudder mix is on switch B, and the aileron elevator switch is also on switch B, and that is my flight mode switch to switch between this cruise/safe mode, where I'm making these nice coordinated turns, and the launch mode, where I don't need that particularly, and landing with full flaps. So I'll show you how to do that switch B setting in a minute, so that you only get those mixes when B is set to safe mode. Okay, this is how you set that up. I'm going to go back one step here. When you set up mixes to a switch, you just click on the roller, and you can see here that aileron elevator is active on switch, and switch B is on 0.
Stability mode.
And
manual mode.
On the other
Stability
two settings,
mode. Thermal mode A.
Okay, that is that is safe mode, and so that is an active mix.
Stability mode.
The other two,
manual mode.
Stability mode is AS3X, and manual mode, there is no rate set on the flaps elevator mix, or the same thing for the rudder. So that's how you can set up your flight mode so that a mix is active only on the selected flight mode, which is very critical for this. I run two different sizes of battery in this airplane. One's a 4,000 milliamp hour and the other is a 5,000 milliamp hour. I found that I'd have a 3200, but I found out it's hard to get it to balance unless I put the battery all the way forward, and even then it's a little bit too aft CG to be comfortable. But these two give me a nice comfortable setting, which is about 10 millimeters back of what the factory spec is. I found that glides a little better that way, and still very controllable. Okay, let's take a look at how things work here when we are in launch mode. So I've got safe on. I'm going to take flaps to the first setting. If you look very carefully, you can see that's full flaps. In this setting, you can see the flaps, and the elevator moves just a little bit, not much. Put it in manual mode. And I get a little more up elevator. That may be a trim issue. I need to take a look at that. Okay, let's do that. Okay, right now I've got the airplane in safe mode, which is why the elevators are just a little bit the down position in the back. They're trying to level the airplane up and actually make it into a slight descent. And the flaps and the elevator are dead neutral. So let's go to the launch mode. And you can see just a little bit of flaps and a little bit of up elevator command. The airplane is level, so you get more of an up elevator command. And it's set up so that when you get to neutral elevators, you've got about 5 degrees pitch up. All right, let's go to full flaps. And you can see that the elevator moves to nose down, flaps go down, and I have a little bit of crow cranked in. I can't do more crow than that because the ailerons on this airplane have limited up travel. And that's about all I can do. Okay, flaps up. Now, let's take a look at this safe, no flaps action when I move the ailerons. Guess what? My rudder's not connected. That darned. Well, let's start over again. Let that be a lesson. When I was putting the tail on and pulling wires up here, unknowingly I disconnected the rudder. Never checked it. And normally, of course, I'd be checking that rudder action on pre-flight. Make sure, and you can tell this thing's got quite the rudder on it. So here is the airplane configured for cruise. Flaps are up. The mix between the ailerons and elevator is turned on. And you can see how I've got rudder correcting for adverse yaw and elevators correcting for the loss of lift as I turn. And those corrections are proportional to what's going on with the ailerons. So when I get this thing in cruise mode up at altitude, I'm only concerned about two controls, power and ailerons. If I need to, I can overpower both rudder and elevator very easily. Plenty of control motion in those. So if I hit a bad bump, I can straighten it out a little quicker than maybe than our safe mode will. But this is truly magic, what I can do here. Absolutely magic. How much more relaxing that can make. Sitting in a chair on a warm summer afternoon, flying this thing out over the cornfields here in central Indiana and not having to worry about making coordinated turns. It's truly my pilot right here, well, under here actually, my co-pilot, taking care of keeping those turns coordinated. And trust me on this, that is absolutely a thing of beauty, which makes this airplane look incredible in the air when we're turning around up there looking for thermals and everybody thinks that I'm the one making those beautiful turns. Well, I guess in a way I am, because I had to play around with these settings quite a bit to get it to look that good. Started out fairly mild and just kept increasing the amount of rudder and elevator correction until it looked about right. There's a couple of other minor hints I want to pass along with this particular airplane too. Let's get to those here, but I'll have to go get the camera and take it off the mount to show you. Unfortunately, one of my launches that didn't go well while I was trying to get these settings right broke a prop blade. And so I tried replacing one prop blade and found out that the standard mounting hardware on this airplane is not very friendly to replacing prop blades, because there is a stud that goes through this mount and a little C-clip that holds everything together. It's a tiny little C-clip and very difficult to take off and put on, at least with the tools I have. So I went over to my local Home Depot store and bought 2 metric bolts. I took that little stud with me, matched up the diameter and the length to what was in the bin, and bought 2 nuts to go on. These are so self-locking nylon nuts that really work well. Another thing that I found out is you darn well better make sure that this prop spinner is fastened securely. Not too long after I got this sailplane, took it over to a field, flew it, and it came home without the spinner. Never found the spinner. Didn't see it come off. Didn't see where it landed. Went out and looked in the field. Never found it and ordered another one. Also, when I replaced that prop blade, the next flight I noticed I was getting some extra noise out of the power unit. I thought, uh-oh, did I break something in there with the motor mount or whatever? But no, I checked the motor mount. It was good and tight. And what I discovered was when you break one of these prop blades, you'd better replace them both if you want to have things perfectly balanced. Today, at 300 feet at full power, you can barely hear anything coming out of that motor. It is really, really quiet. All you hear is a little propeller noise. Not that brrr sound that if you've ever had a prop that was badly out of balance, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, everything's taken apart and put back away. The next step is going to be to take that sailplane out to the field, assemble it, and film a couple of takeoffs, maybe several, and some landings, and demonstrate how this works in practice. One thing that I did not mention is that I found this FMS 3 Meter Fox to be a very durable, very capable sailplane. I've had 2 launches that haven't gone particularly well. Other than breaking one prop blade, there's been absolutely no damage to the airplane. You might expect that, yeah, it would probably be the case, but one of them, it came down pretty hard. I must have been launching unintentionally into a tailwind or something. I'm not sure quite what happened, but it was before I had these mixes set up properly, and that might have been part of the problem. But it came down hard enough to pop the canopy off, and other than the canopy having to be put back on, nothing bad happened. It has very nice hinging system for all the control surfaces. Uh, Apparently a very durable fuselage. Of course, it is a foamy, so you're going to get dents in it, some scratches and so forth. Uh, it is going to get some hanger rash, but it is, in my experience, very, very well put together. And if you're in the market for a big sailplane, don't mind if it's a foamy. I would recommend you take a serious look at the Fox 3 meter. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to comment. Love getting comments, love answering questions. Uh, if you would leave a thumbs up, that would be great. That helps bring my channel into view to more of a potential audience. And if you want to subscribe, that's great too. Certainly not required, but the number of subscriptions can also raise the ratings in the YouTube algorithm. So thanks for watching. Have a great summer flying, and I'm looking forward to getting all of this finished up in the next few days with a couple of hand launches. So here we are at the field, no segue, and I'm going to do 2 launches and a landing. So to do the first launch, we'll raise the sailplane, the Fox, up above my head, test the motor, and off she goes. Again, that's in safe, little flaps, little up elevator, hands free. Now for the landing. Out there at the end of the field, coming in from west to east, line up on the runway, was allowing for some crosswind from the north, and I kind of over allowed for it and wound up landing in the edge over by the soybeans, but nice and safe. Notice how far that sailplane rolls. All those wheels, one on each wingtip, one underneath, and one on the tail. So here we go, second launch, same thing. It's going to be hands off. Test the motor. Full power, gentle throw, off she goes climbing. That's the end. Thank you for watching. If you like this, please indicate with a like click. Helps raise my profile in YouTube. Have a great summer, and goodbye.